The First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
First Coast, I hope you're staying warm out there on this relatively cool day, below average day on the First Coast, and more cold air is in the forecast. Look at this. Look at our little lower third here. Mid-20 wind chill on the First Coast Friday. That is the main topic of this live stream. And we're going to talk about, our weather impact alert that's in place. And also I'll touch on when we're going to start to warm back up. Excuse me. So let's first start off with a national view here, because it's 48 in Jacksonville. But let's look down or upstream where this cold air is going to be coming from. Where if you look out towards Birmingham and to Atlanta, the current temperatures are into the 20s. Ugh, just ridiculous. Look at Bismarck at minus 19 here. Brutal cold out in that area. Now, by the time all this gets to our area, it's not going to be quite as cold. But it is still going to be rather chilly. And in fact, that's why we have the weather impact alert in place here. Friday from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. There is a freeze warning as well for a good portion of the First Coast too, especially for those areas inland and away from our coastal areas. So the impact obviously being those freezing temperatures, but also wind chills dipping into the 20s. So something you want to keep in mind if you're going to be heading out and about here on your Friday morning. Make sure you dress appropriately. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Protect your plants. Make sure people that are vulnerable to the cold here are not only protected, they are aware that the heat turn their heaters back on, especially after the first half of February. We were well above average. We were in the 80s for the whole first week of February. So myself included, I opened up a lot of the windows in the house. I had the heater off, trying to save on electricity, but there's this whiplash of colder temperatures coming in, and I think a lot of people are going to be kind of surprised, if not caught off guard, by how cold it is going to get again. We have a lot of events going on here on Friday too. A lot of schools coming in from out of town because at the 121 Financial, big baseball classic going on with a few college schools from across the country, and they might be going to Florida and then the First Coast and thinking, okay, it's going to be warm, right? It's Florida, it's a sunshine state. They've been in the 80s. Not there. Let's take a look at our wind chills. I was talking about Atlanta earlier into the 20s, but their wind chill right now here on our Thursday morning, this is before even all this cold air here, it's the First Coast, Atlanta's wind chill is at 14. Dallas is at 1. This really shows the potency of this air mass. Dallas, when you say 0 degrees Fahrenheit, I think Dallas is not a city you think of. But boy, they are in that cold. New Orleans is at 21, Pensacola 26 for the wind chill, and look at Pierre or Topeka minus 26. They're right at the heart of this high pressure out in that area, and they're getting the coldest of this air right now. So by the time it hits the First Coast, a lot of this is going to modify, but it is still going to be chilly. Right now, though, at 10:22 a.m. on our Thursday, temperatures into the 40s to lower 50s. I point this out because we're already starting off a little bit cooler, and it's going to continue to get colder. So the rest of our Thursday, before we get to the cold air on Friday, Thursday, temperature is only staying into the mid to low 50s. But if you notice, look at the cloud cover icon there by 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. It starts to break apart, and we get the clearer skies as we go ahead into our Thursday evening. And with those clearer skies, we're going to start to get what we call radiational cooling. So overnight, with that sunset at 6:19 p.m., overnight we're going to get that basically heat loss into the atmosphere. This is going to help temperatures to cool down. And plus, on top of that, the winds are going to be shifting out of the north to north-northeast at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. And that is going to usher in not only the cooler wind chills, but cold air advection from the north. So it's multiple factors here as to why the temperatures are going to be dropping off and why we're going to be seeing this weather impact alert, which is why the first half of Friday, once again, we do have that area in red. There's also that freeze warning. It is not going to be a pleasant start to the day, especially for like the kiddos if they have to walk to school or stand out for the bus. Maybe help them out if you can. I know we're all busy in the morning. Some of us really have to go to work. So, but if you can, make sure that they're staying warm. At the very least, tell your kiddo to wear that extra knit hat, put that on, and try to get ready for the cold, because this is what we're looking at. The actual temperatures dropping into the lower 30s here, I believe. Around probably about 6 o'clock, we could get into about 32 degrees, kind of in between those data points. But look at the wind chills, 28 down to 26 in Jacksonville. Now, areas inland, so this would be in downtown Jacksonville, but I think if you're going to talk about like Lake City, into Waycross, maybe even further towards north into Brunswick, we could be looking at wind chills into the lower 20s too. So with the wind, at least, the frost threat is not going to be quite as high, but I think the freeze chances for some of those areas is going to be up there. We're talking about that stuff that actually freezes ice, and that includes your pipes. So make sure your pipes are, especially in some of these colder areas where we're going to be looking at the map, you have a little drip coming off. You don't have to full on run the faucet, but just a tiny little drip to make sure that water continues to flow so your pipes don't freeze and your pipes don't burst. Also shut off the sprinklers tonight pretty much across the First Coast. I call it Florida snow when we get the water sprinklers running, and you basically get that freeze everywhere off the sprinklers, grass, and all that. Yards covered in ice. Good old Florida snow, right? So Friday, have the hoodie, have the heavy sweater. You notice I put the sunglasses up on the wall here because it is going to be sunny out. So when you're cold, you don't think plenty of sunshine. This is going to be plenty of sunshine. We're going to have that there, so you want to have the sunglasses, but with the winter coat and the heavy hat and all that good stuff. Just dress appropriately here. And we look around the First Coast for our morning low here on Friday. Of course, 32 degrees in Jacksonville. Out near the coast, it's not going to be quite as cold. So if you're in Mayport, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, I'm not concerned about a freeze for you guys. You get that modifying effect. Sea surface temperatures right now about 58 degrees. Well, that helps, especially even areas right along the river too. You're kind of going to avoid those colder temperatures. You'll probably stay into the lower 40s versus the 30s. But let's go a little bit further inland. Lake City, 31 for your low. And let's go further towards the north, where Waycross, Nahunta, Brunswick, 20s. This is not with the wind chill. That is just the colder air that is going to be setting up, and that is going to bring just those frigid conditions here across parts of southeastern Georgia. And as you've seen already, if you go to northern Georgia into the Atlanta area, where you have wind chills currently, as mentioned, into the teens. But let's look a little bit closer to home here and talk about our wind chills on our Friday morning. And this is saying about 6 to 7 a.m., Jacksonville into the lower 30s. Waycross could be around 28 degrees, I think, at times. Could get down to about 27 degrees out there, maybe even to the mid to low 20s. So we're talking about 25, 24 degrees for some of those inland areas. But look even down towards Gainesville, Lake City. You're all going to be looking at the mid to lower 30s at the very least for wind chills. 20s are definitely possible in some gustier conditions when we get those wind gusts. They're about 10 to 20 miles per hour. So if you get those gusts up to 20, even at times when you have exposed skin, that means you're not wearing a jacket. I got a graphic right here for you. When you're not wearing a jacket, maybe you got some shorts on. Goodness gracious, if you're wearing shorts here on a Friday morning, that's your call. Because our bodies lose heat through what we call convection. So if there's no wind, basically that heat kind of settles and it hugs you like a nice warm blanket. But when there is wind, and there's too much wind, basically what's happening, it's like somebody's ripping that blanket off of you. And it blows that convection, that little thermal blanket around your skin away. Now, if you're simply wearing a sweater, it's going to help to keep that there. It blocks it and kind of stuff. But that's where wind chill is calculated. I've seen people say wind chill is just a made-up number. Where do you get that number from? That's what it is. It's not just, ooh, I feel cold and I want to make it a colder. We're talking about heat loss off of your skin, which kind of reduces that warm blanket you get naturally. And thus it feels just a little bit colder. So a little bit of science there for you outside of just telling you what the weather forecast is. Malcolm, our digital director behind the scenes here, may I ask, are we streaming on YouTube or Facebook? I would like to see if we have any questions or comments here. Oh, are we just on FCN Plus?
It's on FCN Plus and YouTube right now.
Okay. Well, I'll try to pull up our YouTube channel and see what we got going on here, if we have any questions. And if you are watching on that specific channel, I would love to hear from you. Some questions that you may have. Or some reports from your area about the weather we're kind of seeing out here. So truly would like to hear from you. I see we got a good number of people watching right now. So once again, thanks again for all of that. So right now I don't see any comments, but I would like to hear from you if we do get any. Actually, it does say on here we are streaming on YouTube, but unfortunately chat is disabled for the live stream, Malcolm, so they can't comment. Oh, he just enabled it. Yeah, okay, you guys can comment now. Our digital director behind the scenes is on top of it. So thank you very much, Malcolm. Truly appreciate it. You guys can chat now and give us a little comment here. All right, so let's go back to, and I'll look out for that. But let's go back to our forecast here. This is what we currently have for our forecast for tomorrow morning's low temperatures across the first coast. Mentioned dropping into the 20s, the lower 30s. But I want to stress especially for inland southeast Georgia, people, pets, plants, pipes, the 4 Ps, right? People being those people that are vulnerable to the cold, maybe those less fortunate who don't have a good sturdy building to be in. Also, elderly who may have the heat off, and just make sure you check in on them. Make sure they have everything running. Be a good friend. Be a good neighbor. Those pets as well. I'm not talking Siberian Huskies. I know they're good, but you got a little Chihuahua out there. Probably want to bring them in because it's going to get cold tonight. Plants as well. And like I said, I'm not really terribly worried about a frost. But a freeze is possible. Now, frost is still possible, but I think a freeze is kind of be the bigger issue for parts of southeast Georgia and also the pipes, and that is specifically for those inland areas where they do have exposed pipes. Now, once we get closer to the coast, you can drop off some of these Ps. Plants and pipes for Neptune Beach, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, not going to be an issue whatsoever. I'm actually not terribly worried about any temperature dropping, even dropping below freezing for you guys. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. And we're really talking about these inland areas. And also, it's more going to be a shock to the system, I think, for a lot of people as these temperatures do drop off. You know, I was talking about the wind chill and that blanket of warmth a second ago, too. Clear skies coming in tonight is going to lead to that radiational cooling we're talking about. So at night, you know, or actually during the day, the earth heats up, right? Duh. Don't need to be a meteorologist to tell you that. But at night, if we have cloud cover here across the first coast, it almost acts like a blanket. And we've seen this last night. It was cool and dreary out, but despite the cold front moving through and a strong north wind, the temperatures only dropped into the 40s overnight. And I say only into the 40s because if we had clear skies overnight here on the first coast heading into Thursday morning, we probably would be seeing even colder temperatures because once again, like the wind chill, you know, you rip that blanket off. If we take off those clouds, the heat's going to escape. So it's all about conserving that heat, keeping it close to you. And if we get rid of those clouds, it's kind of like taking off your sweater, right? The heat escapes and temperatures are going to drop. And that is the case, once again, heading into your Friday morning. With those cold temperatures from about 2 to 9 a.m., we're going to be looking at wind chills into the mid-20s, which is going to keep things, well, frigid. All right, so when are we going to warm back up? It's a good question. And it's probably not going to be until about the mid part of next week. We have this cold air in place, but what's going to take place Saturday and Sunday especially, winds will shift in from the east. So we're going to get a nice onshore breeze. That's why I got rain chances about 10%. In fact, out at Seawalk Pavilion, we have the Seawalk Pavilion Music Festival going on. Seawalk Music Festival, I should say. Some good acts out there if you're going to head out. I wouldn't let the weather keep you from going out, but just keep in mind there could be a couple sprinkles with a solid breeze. Not a good beach day to head in the water. Water temperature is about 58 degrees. I mean, that's a cold bath. But also, it's going to be cloudy. You got a couple sprinkles coming in, and may even see a little risk of rip currents with that, too, with that easterly breeze setting up. Monday into Tuesday over towards Wednesday, though, look at the temperatures. They do start to rise again, and we could be pushing back into the mid to high 70s. So, yeah, a little ups and downs here. It is that time of year, especially February on the First Coast. It is our more or less spring season where we get these sways. We get the dips in the jet stream that come on through. Cold front kicks on by, causes the temperatures to fall. Cold front moves away. High pressure shifts in, turns the winds in from the south, and causes the temperatures to warm back up. So lots of ups and downs in our forecast. I don't know what Robert's going for here. I would like to think you're talking about the New Zealand rugby team, which they're a great rugby team. Yeah, we deleted that comment out. Good. Let's take a look at... we got 20 people watching right now. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or anything like that, please let me know. And we'll try to answer them here right now. But also, we're going to cover this one more time here. Friday morning, 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. We're going to be looking at this weather impact alert once again, which is not severe. We don't try to hype these things up, and that's not the case with this scenario. We're not talking about cold temperatures and I call this power outages or anything like that. But we do want you to be aware that maybe some of your plants could be impacted here, or you could be looking at just kind of this whiplash with these cooling temperatures. I want to make sure everybody's aware, since we have been in the 80s for the last few weeks, and we're going to be looking at these temperatures dropping down on the backside of this cold front that we're seeing here yesterday. So it's going to be chilly as we look ahead through our Friday morning before we gradually warm back up heading into next week. I'm going to end with this right here. And that is just the temperatures across the United States, where, look at that, Bismarck is at minus 19, Pierre is at minus 7, Green Bay is at 15. These are all classic cold weather spots. But Atlanta is at 28 degrees, while D.C. is at 25. Goodness gracious, all that cold. It's like Jacksonville's the warm spot almost on this map, while Miami is at 72. Miami's eventually going to get the cold too by tomorrow night, by Friday night. All this is going to spill in. So don't spare any tears for Miami. The cold air is coming for them as well. So stay warm out there, friends. It's going to be some cold weather over the next few days. We're going to keep you posted here at First Coast News and, of course, at firstcoastnews.com, as well as streaming live here on Roku, Fire Stick, and Apple TV. So if you have any of those platforms, make sure you download our app so you can watch, of course, our shows, but as well as these weather updates and just keeping you guys posted. So as always, thanks for tuning in, and we truly appreciate your feedback and everything. And stay warm out there, friends. Hope you have a great day.